Africa. So the black marlin in the Atlantic is real. Nobody wants to talk about that. It is not a Loch Ness monster. It's not. It's rare.
Yeah,
but 2 fish caught in very cold water in the Eastern Mediterranean, which, by the way, doesn't even have white marlin, barely has any blue marlin, has spearfish. The Mediterranean spearfish as we used to call it back in the day, but not a great habitat.
And how did it start out? Like, what was the origin story?
Too much alcohol.
Really? Okay.
Says if God wanted us to have fiberglass boats, he would have given us fiberglass trees.
It's for fishermen. It's not for taking the wife and the wife's friends.
I think that it's a really, really pretty bit.
And then there was a blur that went by and ended up in the cockpit, as far as if I can remember correctly.
Hey everybody, stay a sport fishing. It's Anthony, just by myself today, cruising down 95 with my brother on the way to the Miami Boat Show. Nick is getting ready for the Miami Boat Show, so he's preoccupied. But we got Hook Harmeling, the person behind the Billfish Report. I never really knew who it was. I just thought of they were just reports that showed up, and I could use it to maybe influence our bosses or people on where to go fishing. So super happy to have you, man. I've been a great admirer of your work, and I appreciate everything you've done for just the whole, just gathering all the info and the intel.
Sure.
Man. So
I mean, that's what we try to do, man. We try to take guys like you and put them together with other guys, and the whole fraternity, as you know, in Billfish, it's pretty darn small. And we're all wanting to know where the next fish is, and whether it be in Cape Verde or whether it be in Cabo or Maryland or wherever it is, we always want to know where the bite is and where we can go. And in your case, get your bosses to track down those fish and spend a little bit of money and have some fun and, move across the canal or whatever it's going to be. So we're happy to have been providing that and been doing it for a long time too, man. So, it's a labor of love, as all of us know in this industry.
Yeah. So what got you started in the, what was the preface behind the idea of putting all this together?
Yeah. So I was already doing it. Right. So I'd go fishing in Costa Rica, and then back then, of course, we used phones. I'd call up and I'd say, hey man, what are you guys up to? I just fished, we caught 10 sailfish, 2 blue marlin, had the bite go after I left, because I always wanted to know, did I miss the bite? And so I'd get those back in phone calls. Didn't really text back then. And then, email came around, and I'd text guys after I went fishing, be it, Madeira, hey, had a slow week. Oh, you got 5 the next week. Of course you did. I left, water got better, bait got better, whatever it is. So I was already doing it. And then I got hooked up with some guys down in the Keys and started doing a small radio show segment. It was only about 15, 20 minutes with some guys out of Key West that I know. And they wanted to know more about bill fishing because, they've got their sailfish bite down there. And, where else could guys go catch more fish? And I said, hey, you know what? I'll be happy to provide it. So I started doing that for a while. Then, quite frankly, my wife said, hey, there's this thing called social media. You should be on it. Never done it, still don't love it. Despite all of the social media we have today, I still kind of like the old school, make a phone call, figure out where guys are and what they're doing, and kind of felt like we kept it secret between us, and now there's no secrets anymore. And so that evolved into a Twitter page, and then I don't know how many Twitter pages we've got now. It's a lot. And then we started our Facebook pages. We got a bunch of those, and then we've also got Instagram. We're not on TikTok because I don't want to give messages out to China. But we've hit all the channels that I could personally handle, if you know what I mean. And I'm far from an expert, not even close.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, for everybody listening, I forgot to mention that Hook's website, Billfish Report, is basically an international reporting service for the latest and greatest billfish, right? Not necessarily the greatest, but when people get bites, you report them. And like I said,
that's the thing. I think there's a misconception, right? Guys always are like, well, I only report when I get 10 blue marlin. I'm like, I don't want to hear about the 10 blue marlin. I like to hear about you went 2 for 3 like the normal guys, or you 9 for 10 on sailfish, or hell, 1 for 2 on black marlin. That's a great day, until all of this social media and I don't have anything against fad fishing, but fads. Two marlin in a day was a pretty damn good day, and we were all pretty happy, right?
Yeah.
So I was totally happy sending that out, and it also helps guys figure out the build, And I had some guys at University of Miami. I never saw the results, but they were trying to take my data, because I've got hundreds of thousands of reports now, And then I asked him to take it against tide, moon, water temperature, and all that other stuff. And this guy was doing his thesis or his PhD or what it was at University of Miami. And so I sent him all this data, just thousands and thousands of Excel spreadsheets. Never reported back to me, never heard the results. I was so disappointed. I was like, finally, someone's going to take this and take the effort, cross-reference this. And then I could have given it to everybody. I was going to do it for free, right? If, if you guys were heading down the DR, I could be like, well, this time of year on, this moon and this bait or whatever it was, and never came to fruition, but I sure tried to do it.
Yeah. And that's, what's crazy is you talk about the DR, but I used your website and your social media posts to, when my boss was asking about where we might want to, I thought that we could go to a place that was pretty consistent. We look back in the span in the range on your page, and I looked for like 2 or 3 years so I could kind of really base it on try to get a good idea of what we were looking at, and it honestly played out to be almost exactly what it was not a good, it was a pretty good season in Costa de Campo where we did most of our fishing. It was our first year, but the fishing overall for the fleet was on par with everything that on average of what was reported over the years that I looked.
Personally, I love hearing that. I just love hearing that. I've heard this before. I've had guys actually ask me to break up months. I can download my data fairly easily, so I can put it into a spreadsheet. Don't everybody ask me at once. It's a lot of work, but get it done, put it up there, put it out, especially the guys that I know. And they say, hey man, we're thinking about going down here or there, or, what month was good or bad. I love Costa de Campo, by the way. Always enjoyed fishing down there and got some just incredible bite. And I know it's slowed down a little bit. No offense, Vilma, but it's a great spot. I think everybody and their brother ought to go down there. Every owner ought to go down there. Love fishing it. It's got its season like everybody else, just like Cap Cana. But I had to throw that in there. Really, really like that. Josie, hello. Love Costa Campo.
Yeah. The sonar training ground is what I call it. That place is, having it be pretty rough and having basically, I wouldn't say a cap. It's pretty much a captive fish. You kind of know where they're going to be. Then it kind of can help you.
Especially when you're. Yeah, especially down there, I think that there's not a lot of the toothy critters around, right? So you're training right off the fads and following them off the fads. And I'm not a sonar guy. I've done it, but I'm far from an expert, so I won't even try to talk about that. But there's certain areas that works really well in. That's probably a great training ground for deep water, good clean water. You're really only seeing bait up on the fads, and then you can track the big marks to the east or west or wherever it is off the fad. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Pretty cool spot in Casa de Campo, like you said. The yacht club there, man. I did a lot of pods from there. Nice background there.
Yeah, for sure.
So
they know how to treat us too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, good folks.
Make you feel at home.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about your fishing career. We know you do that, but how'd you get into fishing overall?
Yeah, I think I did what everyone else did. Your dad takes you fishing. And you catch, in South Carolina, redfish, trout. Used to catch a lot of sharks because that was the big species that was cool to catch. Go take my little 17-foot whaler out and go do all that kind of stuff. And then you start, seeing bigger fish and want to get and doing all that kind of stuff. And you start fishing for kingfish, and then the other meat fish. You get a wahoo or a tuna or whatever it is, and it starts building. And you want to see bigger fish as it is as men and as fishermen. And then I think I was 15 or 16. And I caught my first sailfish, and it was by accident. And we were out king fishing in like 90 feet of water. I had like a king buster on with just a horrible rig. I think it was like a cigar minnow or something like that. I wasn't rigging baits worth a damn back then. I'm not sure I'm great now either. And, thought I had a kingfish on. All of a sudden the sailfish jumps up. I thought I caught a grander at that time. And, I was never not hooked, but boy, I got hooked on billfish. I got rehooked into fishing, if you know what I mean. I really, really loved tarpon fishing. As a kid, my dad took me down into the Keys, spent a lot of time there, caught my first tarpon. So it was my big first fish, probably when I was like 10 or 11, with a guy named Randy Rode. Hello, Randy, if you listen to this. And we fished that for 5 or 6 years. And tarpon was my inshore love, and then blue and black marlin are my love on the offshore.
Cool, man. And then you wouldn't. Did you get into kind of traveling and fishing?
Yeah, pretty quickly after that, right? So, my dad and I were taking trips down and doing the old tarpon thing, and I was like, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll do something different. So we started doing the South Florida gig a little bit more. Had done it before, and started doing the sailfish thing. And then I think the natural migration for there is Cabo. So I think I caught my first striped marlin when I was probably, 17 or 18, whatever it was there. I've been to Cabo, love that spot too, probably, 20, 30 times, just chasing down the striped marlin, the easier fisheries to get to. And then, of course, you start hearing about whatever fisheries are out there. And I remember going years ago to Venezuela, talking about great people and what a fishery. What a shame it's shut down now, but I enjoyed going there a couple of times. Got a couple Grand Slams out of there. Got my first time double-digit billfish. I think we got 16 in a day, which was just insane. With a guy named Captain Dave Noling. Dave, if you're there, hey man. Just great memories, great people. Would love to be down to Caraballeda again, fishing down there. So that was like 2000, 2001, right when it was all getting messed up. So
yeah, gotcha, man, gotcha. So.
Thanks for wearing my hat, by the way, today. It was really nice of you.
What was that? Oh, I don't have one. I wish I did.
No, it says Hook.
Oh yeah. That's our.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Appreciate you very much.
So would you consider yourself the record keeper for release records? Because when I did an internship at the Billfish Foundation, and this is years and years ago.
Yeah.
Like right as Facebook started to become not only a college thing but a more mainstream thing. Yeah. And fishermen started to get on there, and I started to see all these guys that I wanted to be like growing up, like trying to find, like going all these places and posting their reports. And I was like, I said to them, I was like, man, it'd be great if we had a source for where the records were. And especially the release records
on the de facto release records, right?
Yeah.
So I talked to the IGFA about trying to like take that over, and they weren't really doing it. And then they used to have, I'll switch up too. They used to have a bunch of data on granders. They used to have a grander club, which we've actually started, called the World Grander Club. It's also affiliated with Grander Watch, which is another one of our websites. If you haven't checked it out, it's I spent, I don't know, thousands and thousands of hours of populating that, because everyone kept talking about granders, this, and there are 2 caught here and 3. I'm like, well, I've got the data. Let's just dump it. Now, it took me years to put all that together. I think we're at 1,400 granders.
Wow.
But then release records, the same thing. No, nobody was keeping them up. I was like, hey, I'll do it. Assuming the IGFA was going to take it over. I know they started their release records where they would weigh the fish with like a boga or whatever. Which is cool, fine, whatever. But I didn't do that either. So I thought I'd do it. A lot of guys would come out and say, I caught 700 sailfish today as a world record. And I go, I don't know if it is or not. So I said, I'll just start it. So I don't know if it's a perfect science. There's still a couple spots that are open there, but I started doing records for Grand Slam releases, started doing it for seasonal records, daily records. There's some amazing reports in there. If you go to billfishreport.com, I have release records in there. I mean, especially because of the fad fishing and what we've been able to do in Costa Rica and in the DR. I think with Donna Lucy had 29 out of Cap Cana. I think that's, or 26 the record on Blue Marlin. And then I think the Carol Libby, maybe that had 29 out of Costa Rica. And records are going to be tough for all of us to beat, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it inspires people. I know people that have gone after that Atlantic release record. And when we talk about, for context, when we're talking about release records, we're not talking about IGFA like weigh a snook and let it go. We're talking about numbers of billfish caught for the listeners.
So we, and the thing about us versus the IGFA is that we don't sit there and do any, there's no lie detection, any of that crap. We trust the guys that are there. We don't trust every single report we get, if you know what I mean. We kind of know who's who and who's reliable. And then like we just had the new Blue Marlin record for a season come in off of Cap Cana, and those guys kept the immaculate record, sent us the entire thing. Of course, that was an easy,
salty fare.
For sure, man. Those guys
are not really. No. They're enjoyable guys to be around, but fishing around them is they have that region of the world figured out, man.
Nothing worse than watching the other guy catch fish.
I mean, I'm happy for it. They put it's like anywhere else. There's always a group of boats or a boat that really puts the time and effort into figuring it out and getting out there. And they would being a mid-Atlantic guy, we got on the blood money, we got really used to the novelty of like, oh, let's leave. You know, we didn't get a bite till noon yesterday. Let's leave at 7:30, and those guys had already been fishing for an hour and caught 4. You know, they wanted it. You know, and I think, and when we come,
they earned it.
when we get back to Ocean City, we try to compete with those guys there, and we want it. We we leave early, we stay late, and you know, I mean, but you know, kudos to the boats, and you guys know who you are, that, and we know who they are because of you, that really go to a place and put their effort in and get after it, man. And you can tell, you know, they just have a distinct advantage because they put in the work.
Like everything in life, man, right? You know, dedication, hard work, they definitely do it. Some of these other guys with these other records, same thing, you know. I mean, you didn't hear, by the way, about those 0 for 0 days, right? In fact, I think I remember posting something on Facebook, which is really impressive to the DR. I want to say it was only a handful of days of all the days they fished. There's only like 5 or 6 days they got skunked.
Yeah.
And then they fished year round. I think they only 2 months they didn't fish.
You can always tell when the full moon's coming around, because
sure.
if you're not watching it already, because there's a Billfish Report, and there's a picture of the Salty Fair with a rigger full.
Well, nobody wants to hear about the full moon thing, but well, maybe it's kind of true.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a pretty loose criteria when we come to like seasons and days that you put together, you know, like. Yeah. I mean, I would assume that a day basically is you leave the dock and come back to the dock, you know, over the, you know, do you come back in the dark? Yeah, most of the time for those days where the records are being set, you're getting in, you know, you're probably not fishing in the dark, but you're getting back to the dock in the dark.
Yeah. It's a full fishing day, you know.
Yeah.
The only time that would ever really come into play that maybe wasn't be true is, I know, like I think it's the Booby Trap has the record for swordfish. They did it in I think a 24-hour period of time, but they also were sleeping out there at the same time, you know. So sometimes that's a little bit more gray.
But I guess,
but when you catch as many as they did, it's still like, I'm still just in awe, right? So I don't really care.
And I guess if you know, if they go out there and say, hey, we did 24 hours, you know, that's the criteria for that specific fishery and that little record. It's not necessarily like, you know, anything, because so, you know, fisheries are some of these bill fisheries are so similar, and some of them are super diverse, you know, across the world. But so you kind of got to acquiesce to the way the fishery is, and kind of judge the record for that locale. You know, and then if somebody in Tasmania wants to try to break that record, be like, well, their criteria, if you wanted to break it, was, you know, they did it for 24 hours. If you can do it in 12, go for it, you know?
Well, you know, the thing about the records is there's a lot of body of water records. I've been asked to keep all those, and oh my word, what would be 1,000 different body of water records? Of course, the big one, though, as you know, is Mag Bay. And those guys, I mean, it's like, how many did you catch on dead bait versus live bait versus sunshine versus sunrise versus cloudiness? I mean, everybody, I was over here at a different point than he was, and I saw him, and there's no way he caught. I mean, the numbers they're putting there, let's put it this way, is a big bio mass that's unrivaled probably in the world that happens in that period of time to which those fish are there. And there's blue whales and there's seals, and there's thousands of those things. And I'm not taking away from it, because I think it's just absolutely fascinating fishery. But I get that. I mean, I caught 700 today. I'm like, I believe you, but I mean, I'm having a hard time with the math now.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm a dead bait guy, but caught fish. And if you want to specify live or dead, then go ahead. And then you could say that you caught the most dead on dead bait, if that's necessarily the case, or lures. But at the end of the day, the most is the most, and you really can't, whatever emphasis or priority you want to put on how they were caught, then that's your opinion. But I mean, the number is the
I think
number.
Sometimes you drop the ego, right? And what you just really say is that was an amazing day of fishing.
Especially,
and I can't believe that many apex predators were behind my boat eating bait.
Yeah. Especially
dead bait or live bait. It's just unbelievable to think in today's world, with all the overfishing and commercialization, all that stuff, that there's still a place like where we all can go and enjoy, and everybody can go there. Everybody can go there.
And I always say, especially a place like that where, you know, it's pretty damn consistent. You know, if you're not in Cabo, you're maybe at the potato bank or or not in Mag Bay, you're maybe at the potato bank or the finger bank or the Golden Gate.
Yeah.
They're somewhere up there between Cabo and Mag Bay during the season. So, just go and enjoy it, because, we've, on the East Coast, we've seen fishing like that for maybe at best 6-7 hours in my short career. Like you see fishing like that in different places, but at certain times, but not for days and weeks and months on end.
Months.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, are you kidding me? Normally did you see that bite in Kona, by example? I don't know. I think I saw one guy post there was 60 over 500-pound blue marlin caught in January. It was a 6-day period of time. And the bite fell right back off. And that's normally bill fishing for you. Right? You get that one little apex of the bite. Everybody gets in there, hammers them, settles back down. Maybe you get that again, but yeah, I mean, go when the bite's good.
Yeah, you have to do your research and use the work you put in.
Yeah, for sure.
Figure it out to try and predict when the best time is. But yeah, that's just, I mean, I appreciate it. It's just nice to be able to look and see, like, not that many people get a shot to do a record, but man, if you're out there, like being from Ocean City, I always have Duffy's record on my mind and be like, that 57.
I could see that, right? I could see that. But
I leave the dock every day ready, just loaded, not locked and loaded every day, but we have enough hooks that if we ever land
how many
on that
flags
day,
you got? How many
not
flags
enough.
you got?
Not enough. But that day on the Billfisher, they didn't have them either.
I know. I always joke. We'll post something and a guy's got 12 flags. He's like, I wouldn't even have that many flags. I'm like, well, then you aren't shooting high enough. You need to have 100 flags just in case.
Before we moved from a 56 Viking to a 64 Cason, and we got all the tackle and the flags and everything together. My thing was, I would always have 2 more flags in our best day. And then if, there's just to put it like, some days you do shatter your best day. And typically that's how it works in a place like Ocean City, where it can be kind of feast or famine. Yeah. But that was always my rule until we got the other boat and got the flag. So I still don't have 57 flags, but
something to live up to.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah,
I don't have them for sure either.
But
if I caught that many, I don't even know what I do that day. Right? I just quit. just drop the mic.
Yeah, I mean, I would go the next day, because
that's what the bite's good.
We live for. I mean, if you're, I don't know. That's the record is, having a record like that is amazing, but the essence of fishing for me is, it's a fleeting time. Like, it's not going to be you catch 30 in the Mid-Atlantic one day. You can't wait till next Saturday to go again, because that's not how it works. Especially in a like anywhere, you could go to Costa Rica and catch 60 one day and catch 10 the next. It's just we don't, as much as we like to think we know a lot about the ocean, we don't. So,
well, I mean, look, not knocking on the season y'all had this year, but it wasn't your best season.
It was abysmal.
In the Mid-Atlantic. Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but it's like, but then go 2 years back, and the other thing, you've been seeing a lot of big blue marlin there too. So what does that mean, right? So the tournaments with granders in it, you didn't see that before.
Yeah,
so we don't know the ocean.
Tell us a little bit about Grander Watch, which I think is just as wild and incredible. It's just a level of passion and the effort that goes into both of these the accounting of all the records and is incredible. It's just like how you gather the information, especially for granders. We're talking going back to went to the beginning of time as far as sport fishing goes.
The grander grab was and still is painful. What I'm trying to do before all those great guys, and we obviously lost a legend in the last couple of weeks in Peter Wright, was get all of that intel before they leave us. And so, but you got to think, back then they weren't really taking lots of pictures, especially, if you go back to Peru, and I know my Aussie friends don't like to hear about Cabo Blanco in the 50s, but even if you go back into the 60s and 70s, they weren't doing it. So I'll get a picture sent to me, and then I got to dissect who that person is and try to find that family member to see if I can get the intel on there. in order to populate it. Now, the ones in the last 20 years, I got that no problem. It's all on the internet. Hell, I got them because we posted a lot of them. But getting back particularly into the old Mauritius fish, getting back into the old Hawaii fish, which there's some pretty good records. Peru was very, very difficult. And then Great Barrier Reef was, I mean, it's a work in progress. I think I've got 600 or 700 from there. There's probably 400 more I'll never know about, but at least we have them. And you can look up for the, if I got the data. Of course, they weren't doing measurements back then either, right? So I try to get on current income, current guys that come in, try to get measurements, try to get weight. Of course, get weight, get lures. I even like to know what lure it is, live bait, line, captain, crew, everything we can to collect and put it in there. Less about the data just to say from here on, here's what it is, but just almost in awe of catching one of those and then giving the proper accolades, I think, to guys who spent the time to do it. Because as you know, there's really two kind of fisheries. It's either you're the big fish fishery or you're the numbers fishery, right? That's what most guys are doing. Either you're going out and trying to catch 20 white marlin, or you're focusing on catching 1 500-pound blue marlin, right? Very rarely do you focus on one or the other. You may have a blue pop up while you're trying to catch white marlin, but you know what I mean? Like, it's either you go to Kona and I'm looking for a number, or you go to Cairns, you're looking for that big fish, you go to Mauritius looking for big fish, or Cape Verde, which oddly enough, Cape Verde used to be a numbers fishery, and now it's 100% on size, although great numbers there too. But
it's just the numbers of big fish there is just incredible. It
switched. It used to be every fish was 400 to 600 pounds, and you'd get the reports, and guys get 12 fish. And then however the currents moved and however the fishing happened and the bait happened or whatever else, all of a sudden it's all big girls. It's amazing. Again, proves we don't know anything about the ocean. Just when you think you do, that fishery has completely changed its identity.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
So, Grander Watch, we try to, give the accolades where accolades are due. There's a lot of guys I've caught a lot that we don't even know about from back in the day. Obviously, less granders being caught today for whatever reason you want to go to. That's a whole nother program to talk about. But have guys go back, the new guys, the young guys, and go back and see what these guys were catching back then, how they caught them, by the way, using cable line or whatever it was, depending on what the fishery and what year. I'm obsessed with it. I still think it's amazing that we have the ability to see an animal of that size, put it on 130-pound test, 80-pound test, whatever it is, and still catch it. Because the physics don't match up. That fish has to make a mistake, right? If the fish jumps once and goes down, you can maneuver that boat all you want. You can do whatever you want, try to do all the tactic, loose drag, whatever. That fish can't be raised purely by the physics of your line and your drag. So she has to make a mistake and think about, again, what they were dealing with back then versus what we're dealing with now. And it's pretty impressive that they were able to get them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially that Cabo Blanco fishing and Peru, and the aura behind that is just something. When you look at the tackle they were dealing with and the area, but also the area, like, it's just crazy that sort of stuff could happen, and they were capable of the boats and the area, and just I wonder single screw wood boats basically off large sand dunes. And by the way, the guys, when you see the old videos and they're wearing like bandanas, that wasn't because of the heat. The sand was being blown off of the mainland, and they were getting chafed by the sand while they're trying to find the black marlin. So imagine the sandstorm hitting your eyes when you're trying to look out over, the horizon, because they were really looking for, they weren't trolling as much then, right? They were spot fishing a lot then, or, they'd troll and then spot. But they were spot fishing mostly on those, watching the down sea blacks back in the day, which can you imagine seeing 2 and 3 and 4 granders down sea up on the surface? Just, oh man. Yeah. I mean, and they had
me back to 1956, right?
There was some, I can't remember what video it was, but it was an old video on YouTube, and there's just they were talking about swords and stuff like that. And I wondered after all these years, I know that I guess there was a sardine fishery that was overfished there, and that they say that and the current had moved, kind of the combination of the two kind of thing. But I'd be curious to see what a program could do in that area. I do know that John LeGrone's son had been fishing down there and caught some stripes and things like that recently.
A couple guys have tried to go back down there and resurrect it. And, that Humboldt current never came where it needed to be, and they didn't have the north and the south hit the right time. The bait wasn't there at the same time, and it's just never been recreated.
Yeah.
That was really an anomaly, and that was only like a 5 or 6 year period of time.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a fishery? I feel like it's pretty good in Isla right now, but I feel like I'm seeing it kind of in Isla Mujeres in South Florida go through one of their kind of their lulls. And has your data seen maybe a cycle or maybe a fishery, maybe for whatever reason fall I would say fall away, not fall apart, but fall away and then come back? Have you ever seen that happen?
Absolutely. In fact, let's just look at the Eastern Atlantic. Okay.
Mhm.
If you go back, with the exception of Cape Verdes, you start getting north of there, Madeira is very cyclical. When it's on, it is on, and it has died and come back and died. And when I mean died, it doesn't really die, but it's definitely slowed down. This last year is a prime example. Azores last year, phenomenal. I think all the Madeira fish were up there, right? I've definitely seen those bigger, wider. Of course, it's colder water farther north. You see those go a little bit wider, a little shallower than you do some other fisheries, like South Florida sail fishing. It may be slower this year or next year or whatever else, but it's usually pretty consistent. Isla Mujeres has had again, sorry if I don't want to hurt anybody, but it's huge fall off.
Yeah.
Bait's not there, as I'm being told. So you hate to see that. But some fisheries are overfished too. And again, I don't want to point those out, but there's definitely some heavy commercial fishing going on, and it has directly affected some small nations. Actually, let's just bring it up now. Ghana was a fishery that used to be one of the finest fisheries in the world, and it's dead. It's absolutely dead. Ecuador, again, no offense to my friends in Ecuador, and I know I have guys that follow me and send me reports. That used to be one of the premier fisheries in the world. And you know what? The commercial guys came in, pounded a living, out of them, killed their bait source, killed their food source, and they're not there like they used to be. They're still there, but they're not catching tin blue marlin anymore.
It's sad to see. Did a little bit of research on Manta, Ecuador, where all those guys all the purse seiners offload their tunas and everything. God, I mean,
if you saw the size of the fleet that is fishing that area,
it's amazing. It's as good as it is.
You would want to go. I can't believe any fish get through the nets.
Yeah.
Seriously, like how do you even bother? It's unreal.
Another thing that I've really found entertaining about your website is kind of, I feel like I saw it on yours. I went back to try to look for it a couple of weeks ago. I think you published something that there was a blue marlin and turkey caught. I think it was that you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just love like the
it was a black marlin.
Okay, black marlin. The obscurity a little bit, like kind of finding, maybe not discovering new fisheries, but kind of like just coming across a wild catch like that. I mean, in the Mediterranean, a black marlin off the coast of Turkey, of all places.
I mean, look, this is where social media, I would say, plays an amazing role that I can get sent. There's been 2 black marlin now caught in the Eastern Mediterranean, which is most likely a Suez Canal fish that came up through there. And a lot of guys will argue about that, but that's my own belief. And then there's been 2 more West Coast African caught fish, and I'm not talking about South Africa. There's been 2 more caught in the Western Africa. So the black marlin in the Atlantic is real. Nobody wants to talk about that. It is not a Loch Ness monster. It's not. It's rare. But 2 fish caught in very cold water in the Eastern Mediterranean, which, by the way, doesn't even have white marlin, barely has any blue marlin, has spearfish. The Mediterranean spearfish as we used to call it back in the day. But not a great habitat for those fish yet. Because of man, we see them there, and so there was one caught in Lebanon, and then the other one caught off Turkey, about the same time period too, which is even more bizarre because that would have been when the water's colder. But there are no fences, and so those fish were, and even in the Suez Canal there are no fences, unlike the Panama Canal. So those fish, it would be a very difficult journey. But I was talking to a very smart guy about salinity. And we don't really know whether or not billfish can really go through freshwater because we never see them there. So, just like sharks can go into rivers, bull sharks and that kind of thing you see all the time. We don't know enough about billfish and the salinity. I mean, think about some of the freshwater runoff that you get in Costa Rica, and so, are they hanging in the mixture of that water on that top layer of fresh, or are they hanging in the salt underneath? what's their sensitivity to it? If those black marlin really did go through the Suez Canal, if you look at the salinity levels there, for a fact they can tolerate really low salinity levels in order to get through there. And there must have been bait or something else for them to chase it. But yeah, no, that's why I'd say it's really neat to be a part of that. And also, quite frankly, I don't want to back completely on social media. There's a lot of what going on, but there's a lot of cool things too. I mean, look, you and I are talking right now. We wouldn't have known each other if it wasn't for it. I know we have a lot of mutual friends, I'm sure, hundreds, if not thousands of mutual friends who are in the fishing world. And it's neat to be able to, interchange and talk to guys that are, passionate about it. And, I know your boat. It took me a second to realize, but I absolutely know your boat. I've posted a ton of your reports before too. So, it's neat to see our fraternity, get together and talk about it. And sometimes we get the typical negative social media stuff, but most of the time, man, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's here for that. I mean, it's a positive thing. Nobody really, and I feel like in the last couple of years, I've seen kind of maybe a little bit less people posting like numbers right away or as openly as they have in maybe 6, 8, 10 years ago. I felt like it was more of a thing for people to post their numbers on a day. Now I feel like it's definitely a little, I wouldn't say it's certainly not frowned upon, but it's just people are a little quieter about it, maybe because they've seen how it affected, especially on the East Coast. You can post a number on a day and then go out and you'll have boats from 4 or 5 different states.
It's fishery to fishery. I think the Americans, as much as we like to talk and communicate, tend to be the least communicative. Mm-hmm. But a lot of guys send me reports because they want us to push their fishery.
For sure.
So the foreign market guys tell me instantaneously. The U.S. guys tend to be a little slower just because they want to enjoy the bite before they post it out, if you know what I mean. We see that, but I mean, the number of reports I was looking at just before you called. Actually, I was posting before you called over. I mean, I had 12 different nations in the last hour send me reports. Right. I mean, it was Mauritius, it was Cabo. I had a guy down in Venezuela again, let a blue marlin go. And it's like, we were East Coast, West Coast, or Atlantic, Pacific. I mean, it's pretty cool. That part of it's probably what I like most of all. And then becoming friends with some of those guys and being able to pick up the phone on a WhatsApp and call a guy and, Bazaruto, Mozambique. Hey, what's up? What's up, Duarte? And he'll be like, hey man, I'm on the beach having a beer. I got 2 black marlin today. Like, okay, man, well, you're in the middle of nowhere, but I'll call you later, So that's pretty darn cool too.
What are the most interesting fisheries that you felt like you've uncovered over the years?
Australia.
Oh yeah.
X-Myth is by far
Eddie Lawler. Those guys are savages.
I think of all the fisheries, there's a handful that I think that we have promoted more than any other fishery, and the fishery has benefited more by us marketing by their great catches, right? So we're just a conduit to all that, yeah. So I think X-Myth is one that has benefited hugely from what they've been able to do, because it's an amazing fishery. All the slams they were getting, and then he caught that grander and all that other stuff. I think Cape Verde Islands too. We've really helped that fishery kind of take off. It was a great fishery before. We really pushed that. The DR, that was a known fishery, but remember back in the day, guys would stop off in the DR, catch a couple white marlin because they're all going to St. Thomas. Mm-hmm. Now they're stopping. No offense to St. Thomas, they're not going to St. Thomas anymore because they can go catch double-digit blue marlin there, and rather than getting 1 400, 1 500 off St. Thomas. So I think we've really helped push that fishery a lot. And then some of the Western African fisheries that you just never hear about that we get reports from, and the Ivory Coast and Angola, and some of those. But I think of all of them, I feel like the one I got the most excited about that I had never heard of was X-Myth.
Yeah, I mean, one of the few Indian Ocean spots that are really kind of on the map, and Eddie and those guys. I think we have those guys scheduled on the pod, but man, those guys, the variety and just the sometimes the days where you see like 2 400-pounders build by the boat. It's pretty cool. And then they can go up to the Montebello Islands and catch sails.
But they go out. They call it heavy tackle season over there. The Aussies do, and they go up and catch a blue marlin, and they go inshore to just it'd be like us. I don't know what go catch bluefish inshore in Ocean City, and they're going in and catching like 300-pound black marlin just for fun, right? let's go inshore now, get a black marlin. So they get the blue marlin first, and then they come in, nail the sails, nail the blacks. That is a desolate place to. I can't imagine the details that you should be asking them about how they just run that every single day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they are up there, man, and they are not only far western Australia, which is already desolate in itself, other than Perth, but then to be all the way up on that tip, man, it's just godly supplies and bait and fuel. Kudos to them, and they fish hard. Man, do they fish hard? Those guys are out a lot.
They do. I mean, now they have the 38 black watch, I think, but they made their name off that contender.
I love it. I mean, just pounding the marlin on that, like it was like a 25. I don't know, it was a 21 or 25, whatever it is. They just pounded it on that contender. In fact, they still have that boat.
Yeah, they
think
still
they
fish
moved
it
up to a bigger boat, but there's another guy that runs. I don't remember his name off the top of my head that runs that 25, or maybe it's a 27, whatever it is. I mean, it's funny to see those guys just pounding them.
Yeah, incredible. I can't wait to get those guys on. They've been getting after it for a long time. But
sure,
I mean,
for sure.
What going back to like the fish that are the random fish caught in Turkey and Lebanon blacks, obviously, is that the most obscure marlin catches what are some of the more obscure not necessarily marlin, but billfish catches you've heard?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's by far. I mean, I've had an obsession for a long time about black marlin in the Atlantic. So I was very pleased to see those kind of reports. And so I would say those are by far the most interesting reports. There's some other guys in the Western Mediterranean that are catching a lot of swordfish, which is interesting. That's something that's come up. And so there's actually a pretty dedicated sword fishery off of France, and then even off of Spain. And then they're also catching spears in between. So that's the other interesting kind of fishery that you didn't really think about. No one ever thinks of Mediterranean and billfish.
You very rarely
still don't
think of continental Europe to begin with,
No, of course not. No, those guys are all going, I get guys ask me all the time, where should I go? Where should I go? I go, well, where are you based?
Yeah.
And most of the European guys, I'm like, look, man, you probably ought to go either there to the Eastern Atlantic and go fish one of those, Madeira or Cape Verdes or one like that. Or if not, go to Kenya, I'll tell you, that's one that's really fascinating to me. Guys are out there catching these, I fish a lot in South Florida, obviously, because as an American, and caught my first sword there and all this stuff. And I did my first time ever was with a guy named Bouncer Smith that everybody knows. And we caught it at nighttime, 2 a.m., that kind of thing. Those guys are up there. They're not getting the daytime fish of swordfish. They are teasing the swordfish up into their spread with lights and then throwing either pitching or fly fishing to it. And yet they still haven't ever been able to develop that fishery into a true daytime or deep drop spot. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
The fact that they do better on the troll on swordfish than they do deep dropping for them. That's the other one I'd say that's fascinating to me about a fishery that I don't ever know. And then you get to know a guy and you finally go, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
And then he sends you pictures that I can't post, and they've got big lights up, and the guy's over there swinging his rod. I'm like, that's amazing. I know some guys in South Florida are doing that now, but for them to have been doing that since the 80s, and they just didn't tell anybody. And I'm sure guys were with flashlights back then, right? And then they throw something at it. That's swordfish are pretty hard to catch anyways, but to catch them on the troll, hitching a bait or on fly. I mean, I know there's I think Roy's doing the fly thing now. Oh, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that takes a level of dedication and patience, and seeing a lot of fish come tease and then go away. But it's when you have a fishery like that and you have the imagination, I applaud the imagination. I think it's incredible. So.
Yeah, but South Florida is probably the best sword fishing in the world.
Yeah.
And here we have it in our backyard, and nobody really talks about it anymore. But I mean, if you said to me, hey man, where am I going to go catch swordfish? What's the most reliable fishery to go get one? I think without question, I tell someone to go to either South Florida or the Keys. Yeah. And we get that all the time, like guys trying to finish his Royal Slam or whatever else. And, if they said, hey, reliable place to get a blue marlin, I'd probably send them to the DR. You want a reliable place at a certain time period on a certain moon with the right crew, of course. That's a really reliable place to.
Yeah, for sure. Another place that I had always kind of known, but when you start to follow these people because of you on social media, I think it's incredible. the Zoom program in Brazil.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
all
yeah.
like those guys. It's just all they do is seem to catch 4 to
Yeah,
6 800 pounders.
Yeah, and it's like when that bite happens, they get four. You know,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't ever seem to get, they don't seem to get the one. And
Yeah.
Igor doesn't not tell me about that. You know, but when they do go out there and pound them, they get it. You know, Brazil is one of those fisheries that I've actually never fished. I was supposed to fish up in Canavieiras a few years ago, and I forgot why I ended up not going. But you know, there's never been a great group. I know Don Tyson used to fish that back in the day and did really, really well. You know, Cabo Frio obviously has a 1402 that a lot of guys don't question, but I mean, hey, look, they waited. As far as I'm concerned, that's a world record. But there's not a lot of boats down there hitting it very hard. I understand there's some challenges locally and why they can't do it. And if you're American going in there, there's some other challenges. But boy, there's a fishery that used to be amazing, probably still is amazing. Talking about, go back to our earlier conversation, but nobody's hitting it. So I don't know if Igor is out there with 10 boats or 2 boats. I know Victoria, they do really well in the whites, but you know, Cabo Frio and then off there off of Rio, boy, when they get after it, and they are healthy fish, my word. I mean, he undercut a few of the fish.
Oh, there was one I got into. Jimmy Grant commented, and there was one recently about a month ago where they called it 600, and
it was like 9.
some people that I really respected were like, that's not 600. And then I think I commented like, well, they catch so many big ones, they underestimate them.
So, sometimes they do. Some guys, you know, you get through this enough, doing it for 15, 20 years. You know, the guys that overestimate, you know, the guys that underestimate, and those guys underestimate a lot of fish. Let's put it away. A lot of 400s are easy 500s, a lot of 600s, maybe 8s. Which is neat. Which I'd love to see somebody. I know I think there's someone down there right now that I can't say out loud that may be down there fishing it. And I hope he and his guys end up catching a bunch of them.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I've always that's kind of been on my radar. It's like, man, what if he went down there with a not necessarily, I'm not knocking the Brazilian guys, they do great, but go down there with a 60-footer that does 35 knots and has a sonar. What is possible, you know? So
I always say that about French Polynesia. I'm positive, and there's some good guys fishing out of French Polynesia, so maybe I'm completely wrong. There's some Aussies and some nice boats fishing out of there, but I swear if you took a dedicated crew and that's all they did, and they fished that, and I know again there's a program that we all know that's probably going to hit some of those areas, some of those hot spots. I've always thought, because I mean, there's 13 and 1400 pounders being caught by the local guys and their little pangas. What if you put a mothership in a 70-foot whatever? Whew, I still think, you know, I just know the back of my head, like get after that. You know, another one that you'd asked me about that just came to mind was the Andaman Islands. Talk about Indian fishery. I was asked to go there and fish that. I just couldn't get the logistics to work out, but I think that's one of those ones where we got a couple guys working there. We got some really cool reports out of it, some 5s, some 6s, maybe some 8s. And then I just think they couldn't keep the operation going because the logistics to get out there. And then, of course, you know, I think there was some political issues as well. But that was a fishery that we saw, you know, really rise. It was going to be cool for a couple of years. His Australian crew was out there doing it. And then that fell off. But I don't think the fishery fell off necessarily as much as just there was nobody out there targeting them.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows the reason? Like, just genuinely the resources that go out there and do it. Like, are they there? But it's I get on, you know, late at night. I get on Google Earth and Navionics and windy weather that I've started to really. What they offer for free in windy weather, as far as the current,
they should be giving us all $100 a month. It's insane. There's no way they should give us that data for free.
Yeah, the currents and everything is just incredible, and you can really, you know, I'm really starting to watch that Azores area now. This is be the first year where I kind of look at it on a weekly or twice a week basis, where you like, why is it good? And I think a lot of those island fisheries, Bermuda, Azores, you know, maybe even the Canaries and Madeira, you know, they're so reliant on the swing of a current, you know, that it's
very much so.
It's you know, it's tough to judge, but if you could look at it and kind of take what you've looked, you can log and look at the data that is provided out there, you know, you could predict it a little bit better.
And we have the data by the way, those are from Cape Ferries, the Canaries, up to Madeira, up to the Azores. I mean, I think those are all a lot of the same fish, right? I think the bigger ones tend to keep going, if you know what I mean. And those are nothing more than buffets along that current.
Yeah.
And the current either comes in or it comes out.
Yeah.
And the fish don't care. Fish don't care what the depth is. They're just looking for food.
Yeah.
And I think there's a misconception that all the time guys will say it. I'm like, well, if there's no bait, it doesn't matter. They're only there to do one thing and one thing only. Well, eat and breed, I guess 2 things, but mostly eat and then breed other times. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Have you gathered data, or not necessarily gathered data, but maybe formulated an opinion, say for white marlin, just for an example, like, you know, we've had a couple not so great seasons here. Sometimes I'll hear a theory amongst the local guys of, oh, they're over in Morocco or they're down in Venezuela. Do you necessarily think that there's this giant biomass of fish, or do you think they move more with conditions?
So the white marlin, if you really look at the data, there's really 2 loops. There's a loop that you guys fish, and by the way, they converge somewhere around the Caribbean and somewhere around the DR. So there's the southern loop, which is the fish that go down to Brazil and come back up, and then there's a northern loop that you guys fish. I don't know your waters well enough to tell you why they may be a little bit farther off, or where the bait is, where the currents are. But there's 2 distinct. If you look at the way they get tagged and where they get caught again, there's a distinct area for the white marlin in the northern area, northern Atlantic versus southern Atlantic. I mean, it's just it's so obvious by the tagging. And they all converge in the nursery that I call the DR. I think the DR is a nursery for blues. I think the DR is a nursery for whites. For whatever reason, I just think they all kind of converge right there because how the currents come from the north and from the south.
Yeah, interesting. It's just so thankful that you do what you do, because like it's something that I'll just do on a you know, we're kind of a seasonal fishery in Ocean City, and we're definitely a seasonal boat on the Blood Money. So, you know, late nights, and maybe not so late, but when it's dark and cold, you get your mind running, and you start to look at, you know, the data you compile, and then look at the bottom structure and the currents and everything like that. And I think it's just incredible. I'm so thankful for what you do. And, you know, we could talk about, I mean, I just could talk about all these places that you've done. And I think that my uncle,
well, I mean, again, we're such a small community. I mean, you fished a lot of these places, I fished all these places. There's always, you know what's cool about it, man? There's always one fishery I haven't been to, you know? And it's like, I think I've been to them all, and I'll go pound a place 10, 11 times, 20 times, whatever it is. Then there's always that one fishery, and maybe I'll get to it in my lifetime, maybe I won't. But then, you know, you probably have, you know, like Exmouth, you mentioned that. I mean, that's on my list. The problem is it's the same time period when the damn GBR is going off. So I can't, I love the GBR, so I can't leave the GBR to go over there, but I should. You know, if I'm going that far, I probably ought to take advantage of that. So there's always that next fishery that keeps us all up at night. There's always a big fish fishery that we haven't discovered yet. You know, Ascension, by example, you know, I've always wanted to go fish that, never got that. And there's probably 20 more that I think we'd all want to go do. And it's something to, you know, something to look forward to.
Yeah, there's a chain of seamounts and a little island off of I want to say like maybe somewhere between Cabo Frio and Vitória, Brazil, that slide out to the east there. And I'm like, what is out there? You know? And then there's this little island off to the northeast of Brazil. I can't remember what it's called, but it's just like in the middle of this giant current that comes from Africa. And I'm like, what is there? You know, but
well, that, you know, if you ever go watch the contour in the South Pacific, oh my gosh, it's just mountain range after mountain, subterraneous mountain range after mountain range. Just like, oh, you know, there's a high spot in there somewhere, and you know, it's just holding bait. You know, just big blues just piling on tuna, and you know, get you fired up pretty quickly, huh?
Yeah, man. I dream about it constantly, and it's just like, you know, there's a handful of programs, the Shoe, the Bad Company, you know, they're out there, and a couple others that are like out there getting after it. And there's been ones that have come before, you know, the Madam and the Hooker, and you know, the Big O.
Kudos to Anthony for what he's doing, man. It's super amazing. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I got you again. Yeah, I started talking about Anthony, and you were talking about something else.
No, it was the same thing. I mean, what they're doing is insane.
Yeah, but to follow it real time.
Yeah.
Right. That's what's so insane. Like, I'm sure when the Madam Hooker doing it and Tyson's Pride, it was super cool, and they were using sat phones and, you know, but he's able to do it in a level that's so different than everyone else. And so
Yeah.
I know I'm applauding him. I'm just like, man, go pound it. I can't wait to see what he sees. You know, we're all living vicariously through him. So thank you, Anthony, for doing that and allowing us all to kind of, you know, live the dream through you, if you know what I mean. Because, you know, that's certainly not something that many of us will ever be able to do. So it's really neat that he's doing that and sharing it with everybody. And I know, by the way, that he's not doing that to be braggadocious, and quite the contrary. I think he's doing it just to show everybody what can get done. And in today's technology, man, it's just so cool.
Yeah, maybe not a program has the resources like they do, but maybe a program picks a spot that he's kind of spent a couple weeks at and spends a season there or a year there and really like goes to understand it. You know, I think it's just him being able to show, and like I said, the shoe doing the Azores, and they kind of, I mean, what those guys are doing is wild too, you know, with 2 big boats, and just being able to show what people maybe, you know, some boats don't have that. Maybe just go charter somebody, but at least you know it's there. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what keeps us dreaming, is wondering.
Yeah, I lost you there for a good amount.
Yeah. I was saying,
I think you're on a roll too. I think you had something good to say.
Yeah, I definitely did. So, but I was saying, like, just the idea
hopefully
that
recorded on your side.
Yeah, just the idea that, you know, they're showing what's available out there, and maybe somebody takes their boat there for a season and not just a couple of weeks, or at least go charters a boat for a couple of weeks in a different time and find something different. Just on the,
I mean,
you know,
he's absolutely doing a brilliant job of marketing for the fisheries that are what I'll call attainable fisheries. So for the normal guy who can get over there and charter, I don't have one bit of doubt that he must be helping those guys that on the spots he's hit thus far, whether it be the Great Barrier Reef or the Azores. I think he was in Madeira for a while. He did really well when he got to Madeira, and then the Madeira bite fell off a little bit. But he's a marketing machine and helping those guys out a lot. And I know those guys are appreciative of what he's doing for them.
Yeah, man. So I think it's all pretty incredible. So
yeah,
I could go on for hours with you about, you know, data and where the next place might be, but I won't take up any more of your time. Hook,
all right, man.
I appreciate it, man. It's
yeah, buddy.
Finally, it was nice to meet you, because I've been consuming the website and the social media posts for a decade or more now. So as long as you've been doing it, I've been watching it. So I appreciate it, and thank you for what you do.
Because keep it up. Have a great boat show, man, and keep sending me the reports too. By the way, everybody keeps sending me reports. I tell, you know, for the guys that's in a tinny in New Zealand, or he's on a 110 footer. Yeah, send me the reports. We don't judge. We just all want to consume the billfish and know where it is. So I encourage everybody to keep sending them to me, and send me the blood money reports too. Look forward to seeing those.
Yeah, man. So thanks everybody for listening. Hook, thank you for your time, and Hook Optics, Billfish gear down in Miami, teaming up. So come check us out if you guys are around. Thank you.